Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Today we have a clock that has a kind of a sad tale. It's a after the hunt Cuckoo clock, and it's an extra large one. The clock I bought was full. Everything was there, and it was a nice, large, colorful Cuckoo clock. And when I got it here, I was quite disappointed. Either they forgot to wrap the crown to the clock, they could have wrapped it and put it in someone else's box, or maybe they took it home because they thought it was cool. That devalued my clock quite a bit. And these are the pictures of what I was supposed to get. And by the looks of the movement, this was last built possibly in 1950, but I think the clock is much older, like the 30s and 40s. I could be wrong, but I'm just giving a wild guess. It's beautifully colored. It has, I'll show you in a minute, the measurement going across is, I think it's 15, or I need a 15 and a half inch crown again. And even if I was to carve one myself, not sure if I could match up the colors. And that's the difficult about this clock, is it's colored, painted, or whatever. It's not just a stain where you try to match the stain up, which is easy enough, or to a certain point easy enough. So this is all I got from this clock. Coming across, we're at 14 3/4, so I need approximately at least a 15 and a half inch across topper for this, or crown, depending on how you want to say it. Has humongous animals on here. From the tail tip to the beak is 10 and a half. The rabbit to the tip of his ear is 10. Like I say, this is a very big clock, and for what I originally paid for it, I got a steal on this clock. And after complaining about not getting all my parts, and I'm going to guess they either didn't want to look for it, or they know they screwed up somewhere, they gave me what's left here for half price, in which this clock, sad to say, it was way more valuable with the crown on it, but just the same, this is absolutely beautiful down below. So I'm going to be happy with it anyway, but like I say, what a sad story. Anyway, let's take a look at this movement. We do have the antique looking wood bird, and we have the music man. And you notice that horn. This kind of gives you also another idea of how big this was. Instead of just the horn piece, it has a piece that goes inside. This used to have the horn with it. Obviously that's gone, and these bigger ones aren't cheap anymore. I don't know if you can see the detail in, I guess we'll call it the cheek of this bird. And the coloring is just beautiful. The rabbit's eye is glass, and it's showing a white part above, and like the rabbit's looking down, that kind of gives you, if you got close enough to a dead rabbit, that gives you a sign it is a dead rabbit. The full length of this without the crown is 21 and a half inches. The wires are missing that go to the bellows, and the bellow tops are missing also. I triggered the music. And this is two-tuned. And this thing runs really smooth, so I would say that this was fixed at one time. What I was looking for is the lever that drops inside here. It wasn't bouncing, and so let me turn this around. So with this setting up right, the door closes, but I'm going to go ahead and probably tighten up that spring a little bit better. Very big board here with the great big gong on here. Like I say, it's very sad I don't have the whole clock. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to take the hands off. We're going to release the bird. And I do believe we're going to be releasing the man, so that way we can tighten the springs up or whatever's necessary. But the reason why we're going to take this apart is to make sure we oil the whole clock. I do believe this clock has been serviced because this wasn't on there tight. The movements looks like it's running really good. I have to get a pliers. This here's should be a nut on here. And this nut, I don't know if they glued the washer on there or what, but it comes with the washer on there. And it wasn't snug, it was snugged down to the hand. Normally you put the nut on first, and then you put the hand on, and then the decorator nut sits on top of that. This here doesn't feel bad when it was on there, but it is sitting awful close to the dial. And what I might do is put a little bit of super glue on the inside of this ring here and then carve it just a little bit, because I'd like that hand to stand up a little bit further up so it's not dragging possibly on the dial. And that's one way to fix it compared to replacing the hand. Because it's so big, I'm going to go ahead and release the bird and release the guy off camera. So I've already taken the screws out for the bellow and whistle box. Being how there are no wires, I pretty much already know this bellow will be the longer wire in here, the lift arm, and the shorter one would go to the back one. I'm going to have to see if I have tops for these, and if I don't have the tops, I have to see in my stash of whistle boxes whether I have anything, let's say, that big. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead, because it's not marked on here, I'm going to mark this one front, or F, and then that one will be B for back, because they do have a tune to them. And I think now I can go ahead, there's a couple screws already missing, but I can go ahead and take this movement out. And I don't know if I can leave that music box there or not. I think I can get this out without messing with the music box. It's not a heart attack to take it out. And I see they've had to change the screws, possibly because they've been screwing in too many times or too tight and destroying the wood, so they had to put washers on here to keep it from going through. And obviously that screw is chrome, it's too new. I'm also going to cut these strings off with a pull on it. That's to trigger either the music or to trigger the Cuckoo side, as long as the warning pin hadn't already hit. And I'll just put new strings on here. The chains are long enough out that I shouldn't have a problem pulling the movement out and oiling it and setting it back into place. I'm not sure if I can do this because the stem, yeah, it's going to be easier taking the music box out because the shaft to the hands is too long and I can't get it by the music box. And the music box kind of curls in and hits a gear inside the movement. So the music box had a couple, I'm going to say, wooden matchsticks to push it out towards the movement. And so I got to make sure to put those back as I'm adjusting everything. Let me get these chains up so I can lift this up. So there is a spring down here and it's kind of weakish. Like I say, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up. The Music Man, it's really lacking too, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unwrap it from in here, and I'll probably wrap it a couple more times on the rod to shorten up this wire, and then I'm going to pull it tight enough that this here won't be flapping around as easy when you slightly pull it forward. But before I do all that, I'm going to go ahead, like I say, it looks like everything's working. I'm going to go ahead and oil all my pivots, and as I'm oiling, I'm going to go ahead and check them. Like I say, this here movement's been cleaned. It wasn't polished. It doesn't need to be polished, but I'm not going to worry about polishing it either, so I'm not taking it all apart. But I want to make sure all my pivots look good, because if I have to change a bushing, then I'll tear it apart. I got tighter, not super tight or anything. This one's got a little bit more. This here, I could bring it up a little bit tighter. You tip it forward, it don't want to come back in, and I don't necessarily like that because I want to shut the door. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one up a little bit more. That's a little bit better, leaning forward, so it should snap shut just fine. Now this one doesn't have moving wings, but its mouth does open. I got my new strings tied on, so now I'm ready to go ahead and set it in the box, and then I'll make sure the music is done playing on this on the inside, and when it stops, then I'll put the music box in, but make sure it's not in the middle of a song either. It needs to be on the end, and actually right at the end, so that way it has room to move before it starts playing, and that'll get the ball rolling when it comes to slow music and then slowly speeding up. So now to install the music box, I'm going to trigger with the string, and get the music box to play, or the music side. I had to set it up to make it easier. So we're going to run this until it stops, and then I can go ahead and hook the music box up. There, it's shut off. So now I can set it down and move the music box in there. And so here I have the music box. I'm on free play right now. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to kind of set it up against the teeth, because I know I'm going to move it as I'm trying to install it, and try to pay attention that I don't get it too far. Then I'll test it to make sure I have a little bit of play before, or a little bit of movement before it actually plays. I got the music box set in there, and it's almost a little odd. And the odyssey that I'm looking at per se is this wood is so white, it makes me want to think this is a newer clock. Where the music box was set, this music box almost looks odd too, because someone drew out a penciled line for where you set that music box in, and then they use the two wood shims to pull it towards the movement. So I'm just throwing out things are just running through my mind. Now you see this nail sticking out here, and there's one here. These were driven in here, and then you're supposed to cut them off so they stick out a little bit. Those are for catching the wall, so every time you wind this clock, it's like a little jackhammer every time you wind it, and that's why you want to make sure to get a screw into a stud when you hang these clocks, so they don't go into the sheetrock. The vibration or the little jackhammer starts eating away at the sheetrock. Next thing you know, your clock falls on the floor. Anyway, this nail here is sticking way out compared to that one, and I can see where it used to have nails. I don't know if they got pulled out or what happened. This one's sticking out way too far and is going to cause the clock to set crooked. I can cut it off or tap it in, so it's about the same, and this way can, like I say, it can grab onto your wall. It's not necessarily supposed to poke inside the wall, but it's supposed to help grab the wall to keep the clock from moving back and forth as you're winding it. And then it throws the tick off to where you go tick tock, and then maybe even stop on you. I also wanted to make a special note. You don't hang your clock up with these screws and a wire. That's what this hole is for. This here has a tendency to make your clock start leaning forward, and so the wire is pulled. That's also going to screw up your pendulum, possibly for dragging on the hole where it ticks back and forth and whatnot. So I'm going to remove these, because a lot of people will do this and I don't understand why. Don't they realize what that hole's for? When you put the screw in the wall, you also want this screw head to go inside the clock and catch the inside of the wood, not just rest here and then it's going to fall off again too. So now, before I start working on the bellows, they actually don't take too much time. I'm going to use this Howard wax because I want everything waxed up. I still have to order the horn, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to get everything waxed up, and it's going to take all the dust away, and I can wax in here before I get the hands on, so I'm not ripping them apart or whatever. And this wax, Howard's wax, I just kind of dump it on there, because even with this paint, it's going to soak in, and I'm not going to have to wipe it off. It's going to stay wet for a while, and then it's going to soak in. And if this paint is so thick that it can't soak it all in within a couple hours or overnight, then I'm gonna go ahead and just buff it off with a dry towel or whatever, so it'll look good and not be dragging in possibly more dust or whatever. And also, I don't know if you saw that, but there's chips in the tail a little bit in the paint, and that also darkens up, and so in other words you won't see it because it's up on the wall. Get all in here where you're not going to be able to get again. And I've got a paintbrush that I will dust this thing with, because how else are you supposed to get in here and get a lot of this stuff, because it's got too much detail and it's too difficult to try to wax your clock or dust your clock if you can't get around all that detail. And if you're doing this in the house, do it with the vacuum running to suck the air, suck the dust when you brush it out with a paintbrush, so that way you're not spreading dust all over the house. Looking at my parts, I don't know why I only have one brand new bellow. It would fit. It's actually perfect if I had both of them. In my parts, I found these, and they're so close that I'm going to go ahead and use these. And I'm going to go ahead, possibly, they're actually in good shape. I don't know what they use to make the paper or whatever. Kind of almost like a wax paper, but it works. I'm going to go ahead and whack these off, and then I'm going to hot glue them onto here. And of course I'm going to be cutting these off too. What you normally do is take your razor blade and score it in as deep as you can around to get it off of there. This one I'm not as worried because it's no good. Let's say I don't have the top to it. These I'll be a little bit more careful with. So when it comes to putting this on, this one's marked back. You got to pay attention when you put this on that just in case they're touching, you want it over a little bit, and you don't want it too far against the wall because otherwise the bellow won't open. So that's about where I want it. What I'm going to do, you got to kind of be quick on this. Not real quick, but quick. I think I ran out of steam. I got a new stick in here and it's not wanting to go in. There we go. Make sure to seal all the way around the glue. And then you just push this on. And it's kind of like super glue when you're redoing these. It's ready. This here wire that lifts the tail, you can tell that's been hodgepodged on. And I don't even know if this would even work for my clock. So I'm got to make me a new wire. Again, this one here belongs on the front. And so I got to make sure it's over and back far enough it's not going to hit the wall of the clock. That one's covered. That one's not, so I'll get some of my tie-back paper and cut a piece and just glue that over there to hold the weight in. Just have scrap tie-back when you're making your own paper for around the bellows. So just glue that on there. I have this one setting in here, and I know you can't see, but I need to put a wire on here that will come out of the whistle box. It's got to go up higher and then over in order to catch the tail of the bird. So this is a good, we'll say, mock-up. Only this nail that sticks out. That's all I have it on right now, so I can see just what it is I want to invent to make this thing work. So I took one of these lift wires for a bellow. These are real short. I never use them. What I did is I straightened this out so it's an L shape. And then on the end of it, I set it on a piece of metal, smashed it out so this here was kind of fan shaped and let's call it sharp. And then what I did, I pushed it in there really good. And I don't think I need a nail or a U-nail to hold this because it's in there pretty good because of that flat part in there. And then I had this installed and I gave it a bend, a little bend about where I wanted it. As you can see, I still have that part on there. Not really concerned about that. But now I'm going to set it in there and see just how well it looks, or whether we need to cut this off, need to bend this down more, up more, what it needs. So I guess you can see the wire. It pushes real close to the bird, and that's without this being open too much. And so what I'm going to have to do is move this wire or bend it so it's coming out more so it hits back here. I could have possibly put it in the front, but this way it's out of the way, and I'm going to put the eye nail in here in order for it to catch the lift arm. I have to work on the hand some more. I put the nut on first and brought the hand out, I guess we'll say. And I don't have time to look for a washer. I need to put a washer behind here because right now it moves around. And if I snug it up too much, which I don't know for sure what size weights this clock takes yet. I have extra weight on the Cuckoo bird side, but the music side sounds fine, and I might have to adjust my bellows that they're lifting too high. So there we have it, the clock's running, and I don't have time today to figure out for sure what the weights are. Like I say, I need to probably make the bellows so they don't open as far, because the clock does struggle when I have the weight on that actually makes the music sound good. The cuckoo bird should easily be able to work fine. And like I say, I need that washer in there to give it a slipping point, so that way the hands can move around and the clock won't stop because of that. And this clock, I didn't oil the, I can't think of the name of it right now, the part that of the pendulum that rocks back and forth on the gear. Anyway, that there, I can hear it squeaking, and so that tells me there are some people that never oil those, and that squeak sound will possibly in time stop your clock. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And you want to leave a comment or especially a thumbs up, that'd be wonderful. Until next time, God bless.